And Lee says,
the difference between urban and agrarian society.
terrific. Not bad. So Lee gives me her answer. I've given Lee some time to process. And secondly, I called on her first. Because you see, she's only probably come up with 1 or 2 answers, where everybody else has come up with all 5. So I call on Lee first. As I said, sometimes the greatest gift you can give children is a gift of time. Before we begin this activity, I'm going to cure your learning disability for you. First of all, I understand that some of you have difficulty with reversals. Because you're learning disabled, you have some difficulty with reversals, which is a small part of learning disabilities, but it certainly is a part. And that you don't understand the difference between P, D, B, and Q. So let me teach you those. It's very, very simple. D is a balloon with a stick on it. That's easy to remember, okay? Now this is something completely different. This is your P here. This is a P. This is a stick with a balloon next to it. And this is your D. This is a stick with a balloon next to it. So now you know the difference between these 4. And you can tell the difference. Can you? No. Many learning disabled children will make mistakes and confuse these 4 letters. Why? We all did. We were taught that this is a what? Watch. This is easy stuff, guys. This is a watch. A watch, okay. This is a watch. What is it now? A watch. A watch. How about now? How about now? A watch. In other words, we learn from the time we're born until we're 5 years old that spatial orientation does not dictate object identification. In other words, this is a watch no matter how I hold it. It's not a watch, and now it's a can of motor oil, and now it's an AM FM radio. It doesn't change because I've moved it. It continues to be a watch. Suddenly, you go to school in the 1st grade, some lady in a skirt says, forget everything that you know about perception. Because now, if you take this shape and you hold it this way, it's a P and it says pa. If you turn it this way, it's a B and it says ba. If you turn it this way, it's a D and it says duh. If you turn it this way, it says Q and God knows what it says, okay? You'll get that in the 2nd grade, you don't have to worry about that right now. In other words, for the first time in our lives, spatial orientation, the way I hold this in space, changes what it actually is. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to read another story. Except now, when you see the letter P, it might be a P, but it also might be a B or a Q. And when you see the words broken, they're not necessarily going to be broken where they should be. And they're not going to be written on that nice, neat, invisible line. And you're going to find what it's like to try to read as a learning disabled or dyslexic child. So let's begin, please, with Maria.
Come on, said Betsy. We have to...
Remember, it could be any one of 3 letters.
Oh.
4 letters. P, B, B, or Q.
We have to...
Come on, Maria.
We have to pick up some...
No, not some. We have to pick up what? Carol?
This corn. We don't have another...
Come on, quickly, Carol.
Another can of...
Can of what? Come on, Carol. Don't help, please. Can of what? Come on, Carol. It's a simple word. Another can of what? Come on, Carol. Hurry, please.
Something corn.
Yeah, is the word something, Carol? What is it? 3 letters, Carol. How tough can this be?
Dog. Dog. No.
Come on, Carol. Quickly, please.
I'm sweating.
Carol, this is an easy word. How many times as teachers do we tell a child you can't do something that the task is easy? Think about that. The child can't do it. He doesn't need to hear that it's easy. Come on, Carol. There were 3 letters in the word, Carol. How difficult can this be?
Very difficult. I don't know.
Another can of what, Jody?
Popcorn.
Popcorn. Go ahead, Jody.
Oh. So you sit back on your laurels.
Go ahead, Jody.
Are we going to eat popcorn that's
what? Come on, let's go, Jody.
been on the floor asked Susan.
Okay, Lee, be a little careful here, Lee.
We,
You can wash it.
Betsy answered. That's a good idea, said Susan. We can wash it.
Nancy.
Oh, dear.
The children went to work. It took them all night.
No. Just read what's on the page here, Nancy, huh?
It took
Look
them,
around, by the way. Look at the number of class clowns that we've developed here, huh? Isn't that a typical reaction of learning disabled
I
children?
got it. It
Go ahead,
took them
Nancy.
a long time to pick up all the, where am I? Oh, yeah, the popcorn.
Karen.
I'm not too good at this. Then they took the corn to the kitchen, and Betsy was,
No, that's not what it says.
Betsy, wait a minute, and Betsy,
Come on, Karen.
the kitchen, and Betsy
Go ahead, Debbie.
washed it.
Is your name Debbie? Is your name Debbie? Is your name Debbie? Is your name Debbie? Now, my using that rhetorical question with Karen absolutely shut down communication. That's no way to communicate. There's no correct answer to that question. And it's extremely intimidating. In other words, we only use rhetorical questions with adults when we're trying to hurt their feelings, but we use them with kids all the time. You know what I've always thought? If you want to break a teacher of using rhetorical questions, assign them a child who answers rhetorical questions. How many times am I supposed to tell you to keep your hands to yourself? Kid says 14. 14. What am I supposed to do with you? How about a weekend at Disney World? That'd be nice. If they answered rhetorical questions, we wouldn't use them as often. But it's a weapon we use against kids all the time. And I'm not sure that we should. Debbie.
All the children thought that
Debbie,
was just the thing to do.
Karen.
Betsy put the corn in two big pans to put in the oven.
Okay, wasn't that fun? How are you feeling right now? Okay, and again, let me throw some questions at you. Whose idea was it to put the corn in the oven? Who knows? Why couldn't they use the popper? Whose idea was it to sweep it up off the floor? See, nobody really knows. Even though you read that material, you went through that material, you don't have any idea what the content was. Because all of your energy went into the decoding of the material. And yet I see many teachers who get ecstatic because they've got a child who's in the 4th grade, who's reading in the 4th grade, and they push him through a 6th grade textbook. But if the child might be decoding it, but not actually reading it and understanding it. And therefore, we're not doing the child any favor to put him through that experience.